Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Namaste and good evening. Am I audible? Am I audible? Yes. Okay. Thank
Yes,
you.
sister.
Okay. So I hope everybody had a great weekend and a very, very warm welcome for this evening Sunday talk hosted by Brahma Kumaris, Shanti Sarovar Hyderabad Retreat Center. So this is a weekly series of refreshing talks which focuses on the topic that matter to you. So coming to today's topic, which is internal balance amidst difficult situations. So for this, today we have a special guest, Tim Whiting, all the way from Sydney. And so the topic is the most, one second, yeah. As I told, the topic is internal balance amidst difficult circumstances. So brother will throw light on this crucial topic on how to maintain your internal balance during during difficult situations, and how one can be free himself physically, emotionally, psychologically by using spiritual tools. So before we begin, let me give you a brief introduction about Brother Tim. So he has first encountered Brahma Kumaris in the mid 90s and then fully surrendered his life to serve humanity. He has traveled and given various public talks in the US, Canada, UK, Ireland, Indonesia, India, as well as around his home country, Australia. He has worked in the disability sector since 2001. Currently, he resides and committed full time to serving in the Brahma Kumaris Retreat Center, which is Center for Spiritual Learning in Laura in the Blue Mountains outside of Sydney. So now let's listen to Brother Tim on this topic. So over to Brother Tim.
So thank you, Veena, for a very, very lovely and warm welcome. So welcome to everyone. And it's really very lovely to be here in Hyderabad. So the topic is maintaining internal balance amidst difficult situations or difficult circumstances. And perhaps the first thing that comes to mind is there's a Chinese expression. The expression is, "May you live in interesting times." I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with this. And it's something to ponder. What does it mean to live in interesting times? Sometimes this expression is called a curse. May you live in interesting times. So how might it be a curse? Interesting times means that we don't know what's going to happen. So it means that there's some uncertainty, some unpredictability. And so if we're very used to having life that's easy, routine, predictable, for someone to give us this curse, or we might even say blessing, may you live in interesting times, it means that we're really not sure what's going to happen next. But I think this is a fact of life. We're not always certain about what's waiting the next day, what's around the next corner, you know. So for me, I actually take this as a blessing. May you live in interesting times, because it's about possibilities. The other side of it is that we like to have predictability, we like to have certainty in our lives. And yeah, the upside of this is that there is a sense of stability, there's a sense of balance in our lives. But one of the risks when everything becomes very, very safe and very, very predictable is that we're no longer challenged. And so what can happen is that from day to day, things become very, very routine and very, very boring. Yes, there's a safety that we're not challenged by difficulties, but on the other side, it means that we're not going to grow, because when tests come, when different challenges come to meet us, yes, it can certainly be uncomfortable because it pushes us out of our comfort zone. But the upside is that it pushes us in such a way that we have to find our capacities, our capabilities. And it's these situations, these interesting times that that test us and actually help us come to know what it is that we're capable of as an individual. And so this is something that is probably a feature of a good life, is that there's this subtle or maybe not so subtle tension on the one side, we have the uncertainties and the possibilities. So a two-sided coin, because it will bring newness. It will bring novelty. It will bring all sorts of differences that will help us grow. So there's the uncertainty and the possibility. The other side is the routine, and it's the structure. It's the, when we do things routinely, it helps us create strength and it helps us create momentum. So you'll know if you've taken up any pastime, any exercise, anything that you wanted to do and do well, we have to commit to doing it on a regular basis. So, this is the challenge that we face, is how do we manage both? So one of the things when we look out into the world, and I definitely think that we are living in interesting times because we don't know what's going to happen. I was chatting with some people before just about the uncertain nature of the world that we live in. And we can see that playing out on the world stage in terms of the tensions in the Ukraine being played out, but also from where I hail from in Australia, we've had really, really irregular weather, unseasonal weather. And in one particular place, the flooding was such, the rains came and, it rained very, very heavily. And although the area is used to flooding, this was more rain than they've ever experienced before. So it was a historical precedent of the amount of rain. And there was a picture published in the news of a telephone pole, an electricity pole. And the water levels had risen to such a height that they were not far from the top of the electricity pole. So, in one city in Australia, Brisbane, received half a year's rain in less than a week. So situations like this on the world stage, but then also in our own lives, we've all been affected by COVID, and all been affected by lockdown as well. And I think each of us would have been asking, what is it that's going to happen? So I've pondered this because I found myself in my own situation where I kept asking this question, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And I arrived at such a place that I thought, actually, perhaps that's not the right question to ask, because if we understand the idea of destiny, we say that there is a future waiting to be revealed. And it's not that tomorrow is a blank canvas, in the sense that people have roles to play. Life will move on, the sun will rise, and the world will turn. So it's not that the world comes to a grinding halt without me there. So we don't have to worry that sense in terms of what will happen. We know that something will definitely happen. I think a better question to ask is, what am I going to do? And this is actually a very empowering question. What is it that I'm going to do? Because it invites me to consider what my choices are. One of the very challenging things when we find ourselves in difficult situations is that we can be drawn into a kind of paralysis, that we're trying to guess what tomorrow is bringing. We're trying to guess, how, a situation is going to resolve itself. And when someone is blocked physically, if you meet someone and they're in a doorway, you want to stop them coming through, you stand in their way. And if they want to hold their space, they can't move. They have to hold that ground. And it's a bit the same for us, that when a situation comes and confronts us, sometimes we want to hold our ground and we become paralyzed. We think, what's going to happen? What should I do? The most important thing is to make a choice and to keep moving ahead. And I think this is where the question of balance comes in. So when I think of balance, I think of two aspects of balance. When you want to balance any object, the best place to balance it from is the center. So a physical object, if we can find the center point of that, that's going to make the task of balancing it easier. So if I reflect on myself, I say, okay, if I want to bring myself into balance, where's my center point? What is the point upon which, I rest, if you like? So this is where it's a question of my spiritual identity. Because if I want to balance all of the external factors of my life, I want to balance my relationships, I want to balance my work life, I want to balance my resources, I want to balance my time. Now, these are all effectively external. Certainly my work life, my relationship, my money, my resources, these are all external things. Anything external, anything physical is going to change. The point of balance is either soul. And the soul, the conscious being, we can say the one who thinks, the one who feels, the one who's making the decisions. So when I'm in a state of balance in terms of my spiritual awareness, what does that look like? When I feel balanced, what happens is that there's a very, very natural sense of peace and all these other qualities that come. So when I feel balanced, one of the things that enables me to be balanced is that I need to be spiritually full. So two aspects of balance. If you think of a vessel, and for this purpose, we'll look at the soul as a vessel. Even though the form of the soul is a point of light, we can think of the soul in terms of different metaphors. And when the soul is empty, like any vessel, it's very easily knocked over or toppled. If a vessel is filled, if it's weighed down by something internally, that will give it great stability. And you can just think of a big container, like even a bucket that we're filling with water. So if the bucket's empty, we can knock it over very quickly. But once the bucket starts to fill, the weight of what's inside it will keep it very, very stable. Now, we think of the soul as a vessel. If we want to fill ourselves, what we need to do is to be still. Yeah, so we think of the bucket, if we're moving it around beneath the tap, some will spill here, some will spill there, and it will be very ineffective in the way that we spill it. So this is where the practice of meditation comes in. So first is to become very, very still internally. So what that means is that I withdraw my attention from what's going on around me. And in a world that's challenging, in a world that's difficult, in a world that's, in terms of the media, competing for our attention, it's so easy for us to lose our attention in the world around us. And as the expression goes, where thoughts go, energy flows, and where energy flows, things grow. So if I'm thinking about what's happening in the world around me, whatever I'm thinking about, be it positive or negative, I'm losing energy to that. So in terms of filling the self, to be still means to withdraw my attention from what's happening around me. And another expression or another way to describe it might be to cool the senses. So it means that, there'll be things around me that I can absorb my attention in, but I just turn down the volume on what I'm looking at. So this is when we meditate, we like things to be quite minimal. We turn down the volume in terms of stimulation of music or these kinds of things. And very gradually, what happens is we can retrieve our attention rather than being captured by the next bright, shiny thing that comes along. And I think the world of advertising, the world of media, it relies on us being distracted by the next bright, shiny thing. So when I'm sitting in meditation, I withdraw my attention from what's happening around me, and my attention comes to what's happening internally. So my awareness with regards to my thoughts, my awareness with regards to my feelings, this starts to become more and more intense, or more concentrated, we can say. Maybe concentrated's a better word. So what happens very gradually is that my inner world becomes a lot more present and a lot more, we're a lot more connected and aware of our internal world of thoughts and feelings. And what's going on around us becomes a secondary consideration. And sitting in this space, sitting in this very quiet consciousness, what it enables us to do is to be, first of all, present with the self. So present with myself as a spiritual being. And I can set aside everything that I have to do. I can set aside all the different roles, everything that I busy myself with throughout the day. When I'm in that spiritual awareness and aware that my original nature is one of peace, being still, there is the opportunity for me to connect with a higher consciousness. Quite simply, we call God. And so this is the opportunity to fill. So we need to be still in order to fill. So I know that there's so many titles in the Indian culture of the Supreme Soul or God, and many of them are as the ocean. So the ocean of peace, the ocean of happiness, the ocean of power, because an ocean is unlimited in terms of the energy that we need to fill from. The physical world and the world around us, this will sap our energy. And so the purpose of Raj Yoga is in order to recharge the battery of the soul, to fill the vessel of the soul, if you like. And we need to find a source that won't be depleted by our filling. And there's only one source for that. That is the Supreme Soul. So the practical outcome of being able to fill through this stillness is that I have a greater sense of stability. And when I feel full internally, when I feel full in a spiritual way, it means that I can be more patient and more tolerant of situations that come. There's something in the Japanese tradition called a dama doll. And it's a toy in many cultures. It has a weight in the bottom. And it's like a human figure or maybe an animal. And what happens is that the more weight there is in the bottom, when the dama doll is knocked over, it will return back to balance more quickly. And the same can be said of us, that the more spiritual weight we have within, the more easily we can recover from situations. And you can imagine if something becomes so anchored and so full, I should say, is that when the situations come to knock us over, we won't be bothered at all. So the other aspect of balance or internal balance is something that's moving. So yes, when we sit in meditation, that's the opportunity to gain that balance by being still to feel. But if we're going to use that energy in a practical way, it needs to be put in motion. And life is not about sitting in one place. So our spiritual energy, we need to be able to maintain that internal balance. And, as a child, when we're very young, as an infant, it's a challenge for us to walk across a room. We need to develop that balance. But once we get to that level of balance, it becomes something we can do easily. And then later on in life, we might learn to ride a bicycle. And so that would require a greater level of balance. And, both require on us moving, so balance in this sense is something that's a dynamic energy, managing a dynamic energy. And then if you have some friends like I do, they like to play different games like riding bicycle with one wheel. And this takes a much higher level of balance, or even walking along a slack rope. So this is like a tight rope, but very loose. And so I have some friends who find this game a lot of fun. And it requires a lot of internal balance in a physical way. But once you develop that capacity, you can imagine they could walk across so many different terrains and different challenges. So that's on a physical level. When we can maintain our spiritual energy, it means that all of the difficult situations that come to us, we will address them in such a way that, we might have to adjust. Like you would riding a bicycle, you have to adjust according to going uphill or downhill, turning one way or the other, but we can keep moving ahead. And I think this is really the important thing. So we have to recognize, how is it that I lose my balance? And I think for the most part, it's when I react to situations. And typically our reactions, if we're not thinking about how we want to respond to a situation, we'll fall back on habit. I would distinguish between response and react. So a response is something that's considered and there's a choice that's made. Say, okay, this is the situation and this is where I want to go. Whereas a reaction is something that happens when there's no consideration. So typically that's something that we've not thought about. And these kind of reactions are things like anger. We get angry to a situation. And I think the promise of anger is control. We think that it will enable me to control the situation, but it actually reveals that I don't have control. And we'll be angry until we reach a point where we can accept a situation. That might happen in 5 seconds. It might happen in 5 hours or 5 days, or some people are angry for years, but we have to reach a point where we accept this situation. We say, this is how it is. Let me accept that and let me keep moving forward. And so in that sense, it's a question of choice. I suppose another reaction is one of attachment, that what we're drawn into is this idea of security. But that's the selling point. I think the reality is one of possessiveness and the one of clinging. And we have to reach a point to understand that all things will move on. So there's very little that I can practically hold on to. So in terms of Raj Yoga, one of the ways that I've come to view Raj Yoga quite simply is being able to take care of oneself. So if we look at the words, the origin of the words, we know that Raja means king and yoga means the connection. So in that sense, Raj Yoga is being connected with the internal ruler. I think there's a rule in life that says, unless I can manage myself, that someone else will end up managing me. And we look what happens in the world when people can't operate within the boundaries of society, or perhaps we can't operate within the boundaries of what our health requires. If we're not operating with the boundaries of society, then eventually we will meet the law, and we'll find ourselves in a situation where someone else takes power over us and says, this is the way you must behave. If we don't manage ourselves in terms of our health, there will come a time when a medical figure or someone else will have to step in and say, okay, these are the boundaries. You have to follow this diet. You have to follow this regime. You have to take this medication. So Raj Yoga is probably a lot more subtle, and I think a higher pursuit than that. That not only am I looking to manage my external resources and the challenges, but it comes right down to managing my thoughts and managing my feelings. So they come, different thoughts come, different feelings arise, but it's always about exercising a choice. Okay, do I need to pay more attention to this, or do I just need to let it pass? And once again, I think that that connection with the higher source, it's something that rather than it being a practice of now and then, and certainly when difficult circumstances arise, people who may not have any sort of spiritual background, or they might even call themselves an atheist. If I gave the example of a plane that's moving through turbulence, so people of all different cultures, all different religions on board, but if the plane's in the sky and it drops 100 meters, I think you'll find that all of a sudden there's no longer any atheists on board. So people will find their faith. People will call out to God in their own way. And calling out to God as a sense of help, or interestingly, on the way to India, I was watching a documentary on a plane, and it was about God. And what struck me is these people were looking for just a once-in-a-lifetime encounter with God. And it's been remembered that God, or the Supreme Soul, is the parent of all. We can say, the father of all. So that's more remembered in the West, certainly in the Christian tradition. But in India, I know that God is remembered as the mother and father. And you can think very practically in your own life. Would you be satisfied with meeting your parent just once? Would you have enough sustenance from meeting your parent just once in a lifetime? And for me, I'd say absolutely not. It's not just a question of an encounter, and not just a question of calling out when I'm in extreme difficulty, but why not develop a connection? Why not develop a relationship so that I can call upon that one, and all of the powers, all of the, I suppose, the blessings, you might say, are available. And I think we need to be very practical, that if it were a regular relationship in terms of a physical person, and they only called us when they're in trouble, we wouldn't feel that this is a very honorable situation or an honorable relationship. But if we cultivate that relationship, and if we spend time, and with a very true and a very clean heart, I think that that relationship grows. And that's been my own very, very practical experience. So, I think God responds to a very sincere heart, and not just a question of calling out in difficulty. Excuse me for a minute. So my own practical experience is that God is very, very available. And it takes a level of surrender, because often we're very used to thinking that I can manage a situation or I can handle this. And it's only when we find ourselves in extreme difficulty that we think that a situation is bigger than us. And so it's more than I can handle. I need to call out to or hand it over to a bigger authority. I know that one of our senior yogis, Daddy Janki, was asked, is it that life only brings us as much as we can handle? And because people say this sometimes, it's, life only gives you what you can handle. And it sounds good. But Daddy's response was no. If that were the case, that life only challenged us with what we could handle ourselves, why would there be a reason to connect with God? So I think the reality is that life will bring to us more than we can handle. And the blessing in this challenge is that we're going to have to extend ourselves and connect with a greater power, the Supreme Soul. The more that we do this, yes, we can face what life brings, but then our capacity will even increase, and all sorts of difficulties will come our way. One thing that I found is that to have the right thought at the right time is an incredible blessing, because we can be caught up in a situation of difficulty, and it can absorb our thoughts for a long, long time. And we can try and rehearse what the outcome will be, what's going to happen next. And, it's been said that worry is a bit like a rocking chair, that it will keep us very, very busy. It'll use up our time, but it'll waste a lot of energy and we won't go anywhere. So even just to have the thought that whatever we're going through, it will come to pass. This too will pass is a well-known expression. So knowing that any difficulty that comes, it has a beginning, it has a duration, and it will finish. So this is a point of wisdom I absolutely love, because it means that no matter how difficult a situation is, it won't last forever. It has its own lifetime. And in the same way, no matter how wonderful something is, we shouldn't become lost in it, because that too has its own lifetime, its own lifespan. It will come to pass. Another thought that I've taken a lot of refuge or support from is that everything's happening for a reason. I think if we can find meaning and purpose even in the challenges and the difficulty, if we can find a reason why, we can endure any sort of difficulty. So one of the sayings that comes through our study is, every now and then it comes up, that which has to happen is now taking place. So I think it's part of a bigger balancing or a bigger rebalancing that's going on in the world, because the world is currently in a state of extremes. I spoke about the extreme weather earlier on, and there can be extreme changes in society. And just to know that there's been an imbalance through the way that we've been living, and what's actually happening playing out on a world stage, but also playing out in our own lives, is a process of rebalancing. And so in order for me to negotiate or navigate my way through that rebalancing when life pulls me in one direction or the other direction, it comes back to this practice of having that internal stability. And so for me, that's very practical, that I need to fill up spiritually every day. So I need to make time for myself. And I know that if through my meditation practice, very early in the morning is a wonderful time, but also at the end of the day, just to let go what's happened. But to choose what's the mindset, what's the attitude that I want to take into the day, and to create a wonderful foundation, a very peaceful, very calm foundation. And it takes time, it takes attention, but it's an investment. And we can't expect a wonderful outcome without some sort of input. This is something that very early on in my practice, I realized that if I wanted a really good quality outcome from my meditation, if I wanted a deep sense of peace and a deep sense of balance and meaning and these kind of spiritual attainments, it wasn't going to happen if I just did it every now and then. So to make it part of a daily routine is something that's really very valuable. As we started when we spoke about routine, doing things routinely, it can become very, very boring if we're just doing the same thing. So the challenge is to ask myself, what's the level of interest? What's the level of attention that I'm bringing to this? And so that's up to me to look a little bit deeper to see what secrets are there within this knowledge, within this study that we have. If someone presents something as a secret, we're very interested. Everyone's very interested in secrets. And so if I bring this attention when I'm looking at things of a spiritual nature, that there are secrets waiting to be revealed, is something that can really spike my attention. And the other thing is to consider that all the challenges that come our way, as I mentioned, they're actually there to help us reveal what we're capable of. Because to sit in a very quiet, safe place, okay, it might be easy, it might be safe, and we won't be challenged. But can we stay in that place for a long time? Inevitably, we're going to have to go out and meet challenges. One of the wonderful things that I've found is through the spiritual practice and translating this into my actions, the actions that we perform, they're a real demonstration to ourselves of the kind of person that we are. So we can talk about karma, and often we think about our karma with other people, or our karma with situations or health or time or resources. But for me, I think the most important thing about my karma is it's a demonstration to myself of exactly who I am. So when I see my actions and I'm being honorable and I'm being courageous and I'm being generous and I'm being kind-hearted and being creative, all of these things are very practical demonstrations, not just to the people around me, but I think most importantly to myself is this is who I am. I know that I'm a soul, but part of the journey is to understand which soul am I, or what quality of soul am I. So I can see that time is moving on, and hopefully the thoughts that I've had to share, the insights, have offered you some very practical wisdom in terms of how you can negotiate the difficult situations, how you can maintain the internal balance. And I think the end result is that we end up feeling very, very capable spiritually. Not only that, but when I become someone of balance, other people look to me. So it's not just that I'm helping myself, but I can be in a position to actually help others. So this is probably a very opportune moment to reflect on some of the ideas. So let's put it into practice in terms of some meditation. So wherever you are, wherever your chosen position is, your chosen seat, maybe you might be multitasking, and I would invite you as a gift to yourself to set aside whatever other things you might be doing and say, okay, the most important person in my life is this one. So let me make some time for myself right now. Everything else can wait just for 10 or 15 minutes. So sitting quietly, sitting comfortably, and just being aware of my physical body. It's a very simple practice just to take a few deep breaths, because they bring me back to the here and now. Inhaling and releasing. Inhaling and release and relax. Inhaling positivity and letting go of anything negative that weighs me down. And just being aware of what's happening in the room around me. And just acknowledging any sounds, any distractions, but being the one in charge. As when a unneeded call comes in, I just say, okay, I'll have to call you back. I'll tend to you later. I have something very important and very valuable to do right now, so let me commit to this. And as I sit very quietly and very easily, I just let my attention withdraw from my senses. Turning down the volume on my ears. So limiting what it is that I'm listening to. Turning down the volume on my eyes. So what's before me is just a point of focus. And so these sensory stimulations, they keep my mind very active. I've turned them down. And so my mind has less to think about. And just to imagine who I am is something internal. Being of consciousness, one who receives thoughts and feelings. Can be through the atmosphere, but also one who contributes thoughts and feelings to the world around me. So I have the opportunity to be one who gives. Sitting quietly, sitting very still. I send a tiny, tiny thread of conscious energy in the form of a thought to the supreme world, the world beyond sound, Shantidam, Nirvana, Paramdam, the home of all souls. And having created a space within, I welcome that very subtle and that very peaceful light, that light of the Supreme Soul. Knowing that I am a beautiful soul. The nature of the human spirit is that it shines and it sparkles. And there's nothing more that God wants than for me to fill and ignite my light, and to shine for myself, to shine for the world around me. So as I experience my feelings of peace, the experience of internal silence, it has its own vibration. It's not one that's intrusive or interrupting. Like a cool breeze or like a very, very sweet fragrance. I need to sit still to appreciate it, and I can't say who will catch that cool breeze of peace or that sweet fragrance of silence. But I know that anyone who's open and welcoming to it will receive that. I might just be one, but imagine 100 people, 1,000, or perhaps even 1,000,000, drawing that divine light, supreme light, bringing it into the world. What a beautiful difference we can make. So when I feel that I'm enriching my life, and I feel that I'm doing something beautiful for myself, my sense of respect and my sense of self-honor increases. This is part of the stability that helps me move through difficult circumstances. That I, the eternal soul, will keep moving, and the situations will come for their given time, and then they will pass. Om Shanti. So a very heartfelt thank you for taking the time, and hopefully you've taken away some experience and some wisdom. And I would really encourage you to, if you're not doing this already, make it part of your regular practice as a gift for yourself. And also, the more that you benefit yourselves, it will benefit those around you. So there's plenty of opportunity, and there's plenty of people who are very happy to share this wisdom with you at your Raj Yoga Center. So I wish you well, all on your onward journeys, and be well, be happy, be kind to yourself, and shine your light to the world. Om Shanti.
So much, brother. I really love the phrase you shared initially, that we are living in an interesting times, and that to being balance and maintaining the very peace in any situation, spiritually aware and connect ourselves with the higher consciousness. And you ended with beautiful soothing meditation. Thank you so much, brother, for this powerful talk. And I'm sure all the participants are benefited. Yeah. Also, we connecting with reflection Sunday evening talks. So we will meet every Sunday with a new topic. Until then, we wish you a great weekend and safe. Stay safe. Om Shanti. And before we end the session, we have a beautiful song for you, a meditation song on how to connect yourself with the Supreme Being. It's not a song, I think it's a small movie story.
Brother, I'm having one question, brother. I'm calling from Los Angeles. BK Rao. Om Shanti, brother. You have given a very good lecture. You have related so many things in your lecture. Can you tell me the spirituality and experience, how it will go parallelly in day-to-day life?
Spirituality, the experience of spirituality, I think it really comes down just to being aware of who we are, not losing ourselves in all of the external roles. I think one of the challenges is that a problem can become an identity. So if I have a health problem, then I become a patient, and I think that's who I am. If I have financial problems and I become bankrupt, then I call myself a bankrupt. So you can pick all the different issues that we have to face, all the different problems, and we can really identify, a particular role, and we say, yeah, this is who I am based on that problem. But we need to understand that it's just a passing scene, and to always come back to the anchor of who am I? I'm a soul. And this is a scene in a drama that I'm playing for a given time. It will come and it will go. And so the very, very practical experience is to remember that, yes, I'm the soul, and I play different parts, and let me enjoy them, even the difficult ones. Because one of the things I found is that when a difficult situation comes and I meet the challenge in the best way possible, at the end of the situation, I can tell myself, and I do, that, you know what, if I had to face that again, I would do it in exactly the same way. And so even these difficulties that we have to face, they can reveal to us exactly who we are. And it just seems like a strange thing to say, but we come through an illness or a loss of a loved one or the loss of a job or any sort of disaster. And if we deal with it well, we can actually come out of that and feel happy that, yep, I did my best for that challenge. I can be very happy with how I responded. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti, brother.